A dreamer kid I was. Practiced in my bedroom. After my mom would go to sleep, I'd be like, okay, now's my time. Put my headphones in. I would sing on my bed and dance and pretend like it was a stage. My friends and I did all get doxxed. We were sent a bunch of harassment and death threats. Really, really crazy. I ended up losing my job. I just took the opportunity of having the world's eyes on me and just kept going for it. Sometimes still doesn't feel super real.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, subscribing is the best way to support us. It helps us grow and bring you new stories from life in Japan. All right, let's jump in. Welcome to Unpacking Japan. I'm Toby, and today I have the pleasure to welcome Barry. Thank you very much for coming.
I know, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You actually came a long way because you're based in the United States.
Yes.
We caught you while you were passing through because you're a J-pop idol and you're performing here at the moment in Japan. You've got a lot of very interesting perspectives on what's it like to be an idol and kind of the whole community, the scene around it. Lots of interesting insights to talk about, especially what's it also like overseas, because I didn't know, but it's a pretty big community as well in the United States.
Yeah, it's definitely thriving these days.
And I usually start by asking what brought people to Japan, but since you're not based here, what I'm curious about is like, how did you get so much into idol culture? When and how did that get started for you?
So actually, when I was a kid, I had an online friend who showed me J-pop idols because she got into it first. And then she tried to show me, who had like absolutely no knowledge on this stuff whatsoever. The most like information I had about Japan was just playing Pokemon as a kid and watching it on TV. And even then I didn't know it was from there. And so I ended up watching this music video and the music was catchy and I saw just how everything was so amazing. Like the costumes, the stages, the music videos, the idols themselves, everything was just so dazzling to me that I immediately fell in love. And, however many years later, down this rabbit hole, here we are.
When you overseas and discover this, you kind of, this looks great. You get very into that music scene. I think the first thing that is catchy is the music, I guess. Do you start immediately dreaming like, I want to become one day? Or was it just like, I just want to listen to this?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like started as just a fan, but I always knew as a kid I wanted to do some sort of performing arts related thing. I was sort of encouraged to go into more practical medical things as a kid, but I always just loved music and being on stage and performing. And so when I saw just what idols were and everything that they did, like I didn't think about country of origin. I just saw like a career path that I was like, I want to do this. I want to be just like these people. And so I just started trying.
So you kind of started this by yourself. I imagine it's
Yes.
not something that is very common in like, music schools across the US where it's like, you can learn how to play the piano, you can learn how to dance, maybe ballet, but where do you learn to be an idol?
Exactly. Yeah, it's still a very new niche thing to the Western normal public, I should say. These days, since like K-pop is a little bit more mainstream, I would say it's like starting to like, if you say, sometimes when I describe my career to other people, most of the time I'll say musician, but sometimes I'll say, do you know K-pop? It's like that. And they're like, okay. So it gives a little closer perception, even though the two are still extremely different.
So even today, because of the breakthrough from K-pop, people are aware of that, like bands like BTS or Blackpink, but then J-pop is still like a mystery.
Yes, it's still so different, but that's usually the closest that I can explain to people with no knowledge. So
what do you have to explain beyond that? Because you said it is quite different. So what are some of these differences that you would kind of then have to highlight to make a distinction between both?
Yeah, I will usually say, obviously, Japanese versus Korean language. The way that we are presented is also very, very different. Like J-pop costumes on stage, for example, are very, very different to K-pop stage costumes. A lot of the concepts tend to be different. The way that they handle just personas and interaction and just a little bit of everything, is very, very different. But at least the concept of general entertainer, variety entertainer that does music and things like that. That's kind of why I compare the two, at least a little bit.
Not just music, it's a whole entertainment package with performance, acts, themes, and like the whole way this is kind of then delivered to the public. So if we go back to how you got into this, because at the time there was no kind of idol school, what was your path into actually becoming an idol?
So I kind of always just practiced in my bedroom. After my mom would go to sleep, I'd be like, okay, now's my time. And I would like put my headphones in, and then I would play my J-pop playlist, and I would sing on my bed and dance and pretend like it was a stage. Very cringy, but a dreamer kid I was. And I just kind of kept it to myself, really, because my family wasn't really supportive of a musical career. They wanted me to do something that would bring in more money. But I also couldn't deny what I really, really wanted in my heart, So I did start doing a more practical path. But then an opportunity came up for me when I moved to California to start doing more performing. I did join a maid cafe over there.
There are maid cafes in the US?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
LA definitely has a lot of like things related to all sorts of Asian cultures, especially because we have like Little Tokyo and K-Town, and it's very accessible to get like food and culture things over there. But yeah, I did the cafe, and then I also did a lot of cosplay, and there's like a lot of cosplay idol franchises that you can perform and things like that. So that was kind of like the gateway. But then there was an opportunity for me to join a more like actual, real, original idol group. And so that's when I guess I really started seriously going for it.
So a hobby and a kind of passion that drove you all the way to LA to kind of get more immersed into that. What was your first performance, do you remember, that you kind of actually got to be an idol on stage in front of an audience?
Well, the first time I did like cosplay performing over in LA was it was at an anime convention. I was cosplaying Love Live. And my friends and I were in a group, and we did a performance over there. But the first time that I did like real idol stuff, I should say, even though cosplay idols are still their own very real genre of idol, I should specify. I guess when I say like original concept idol, like J-pop idol, that was at there was a local ice cream shop that was holding like an event, and they invited a couple like local acts. Cool. And I was in a group for a very short time. In the very beginning, and we did our first and only performance there, and then that was the one.
Is that the group called Sorbet?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was reading up about this, and we briefly touched upon it before we started recording. That was quite something, right? This,
something indeed.
If I can summarize it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started this group and you had that performance, and you had some introductory videos online of who was a member of this group. And then there was a big controversy about how you, for example, pronounced Japanese words, because you pronounce them the way they're said in Japanese. It was my understanding, or from what I listened to. Yes. And that was kind of understood as you mocking the Japanese language and culture, and kind of really blew up online. Can you tell me your perspective, like your how did this unfold for you? Because that's all happened very fast.
It was very fast. The whole thing from I like to consider there's kind of certain milestones in that whole thing that happened. And I think that the first week was just the craziest, because we posted the video, and in that same day, it did blow up. It took a couple hours for it to hit the FYP, but then it started blowing up and exploding. I think in the first day, it got 5 million views, and it got up to 8 million before I finally took it down. But in that first week, we had that initial burst of virality. People started to make videos making fun of us, talking about us. News articles started coming out. And then I like to end that first week milestone with the doxing because my friends and I did all get doxed. We were sent a bunch of harassment and death threats, and it got really, really crazy. I ended up losing my job because of it. And it was a lot. That first week was pretty crazy.
I cannot imagine how you feel at that time when you are just, trying to have a good time with friends and making music and something you're passionate about. And because of how you pronounce something that offended some people who obviously don't seem to be too into that actual universe and community, you end up like losing your job, you kind of get canceled online. How do you process this? Because I know it's a lot.
Yeah, it definitely took a long time. The processing and just digesting everything. Honestly, there's still parts of it to this day that I haven't fully digested. It's been a very long process, but it was pretty hard to initially get over it. But I do think that it was almost a maturity push that I needed as well. Because sometimes I even think like, sometimes I wish I started pursuing idol activities earlier. But if I was any younger, I don't think I would have been able to mentally handle what happened. So I'm very glad that I was at a certain point, but even then I wasn't ready for it. But I think now I'm at a good, better mental point where I've been able to grow from all of this and learn and mature very much. But it was a lot, especially being like someone who speaks Japanese and is knowledgeable of Japanese culture and Japanese idol culture specifically, and then having the reaction that did happen. It was very confusing to me. I was a little surprised, at some of the directions that it went. But it has been a pretty long journey, but, taking it every day, day by day.
From my perspective, I think what happened is people basically having very strong misconceptions about a variety of topics that go into that. So idol culture, maybe Japanese culture at large, and having very strong opinions on these. But that it gets to the point of death threats is pretty far. For you, when you look at the situation now in hindsight, you say you're in a better place now. What kind of misconceptions did people have about this, that it kind of blew up to that scale where people felt offended that are probably not even concerned by the matter?
Yeah, I would say that the two main things were the sutoroberi pronunciation and then just my overall energy. There were also people attacking my looks, but that was because I had dyed my hair black at the time, and I had just gotten over having COVID. So I literally tested negative for COVID, I think the day before we filmed that video. So I was sick in bed, so I didn't have time to touch up my roots. And I'm a natural blonde. So when you have light hair and then, it's growing in after having dyed dark hair, your hairline does look a little unfortunate. So that is my bad. I just truly did not predict the level of perception I was going to have. But anyway, the two were definitely the pronunciation and then I think my overall energy. Obviously sutoroberi and blueberry are just Japanese, guide idol, the loan words for it. And I chose those because it was meant to be a play on words because my name is Berry. So it was going to be strawberry, blueberry, and then, the sweetest idol is berry. So it was supposed to be just a fun little, just pun introduction. But there were a lot of misconceptions with that specifically because, it was strawberry is ichigo in Japanese. And it's yes, that is correct. But also sutoroberi is also another way to say it. And if you go anywhere, you'll see it on food packaging, on signs, anything. So it was just a lot of people not fully knowing that. And then also in regards to the energy, my overall just super over the top excited energy, I definitely was trying to portray just a very like Genki sort of character, because those are usually the type of characters and personas that I'm drawn to. So I was just trying to be like my faves, so to speak. And I think that a lot of the people that initially came across our video were not familiar with J-pop idols at all. If anything, they only knew like K-pop idols maybe. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, the way that K-pop idols and J-pop idols are handled are so different. A lot of them don't do that very like over the top cutesy sort of thing. And not every J-pop idol does that either. But that's just, I guess, what I was trying to mirror was just that like very cutesy energy. And so a lot of people saw that and also mistook that as me trying to like play an over-the-top stereotype or enforce stereotypes of Japanese women and things like that, when, you know, that was not my intention whatsoever.
You said this was a maturity push that you needed and that kind of got you to actually work even harder on becoming an idol.
Very much.
As a kid, you discovered this, and I say as a kid, as a teenager, and you kind of fell in love with that, and then you got your first opportunity to try, and that turned into a very rough chapter of your life, but you kind of bounced back from it, and you actually took this as an opportunity to continue pursuing your dream.
Yes.
And throughout that experience, you noticed how maybe people don't understand what J-pop idols are about, that there are different kinds as well. So when you got over that, what is the kind of J-pop that you wanted to get into, the kind of idol you wanted to be, and what you wanted to convey and that you're conveying today?
Well, I grew up watching Johnny's and Hello Project, you know, AKB, a lot of those like, you know, classics. So I was very much a fan of those sort of like mainstream idols. And so I kind of wanted to be a little bit more like that sort of style. Like, I guess you're more traditional, just like cute dresses, singing cute songs and things like that. So that's always kind of what I was aiming to be. So yeah, when everything was happening and I was just kind of like, well, this is kind of the only thing I'm like really, really passionate about, and the only thing I kind of think that I'm decent at halfway, maybe. So I was like, I really don't want to let this, you know, get me down. So I just took the opportunity of having the world's eyes on me and just kept going for it. And I mean, I'm very lucky that it did work out, I suppose, where I'm at now, and just every day slowly, hopefully getting closer to the dream that I have. So,
which is to move to Japan and perform here. For the performing part, you're already doing this now as you're visiting. When you start coming to Japan and performing here, what kind of differences do you notice between like the overseas idol community performances there, fan base there, and kind of what you see when you come here?
There actually are quite a few differences, but there are also a lot that are similar as well. I would say one of the differences on my end was the way that shows are handled. There aren't a lot of spaces for idols outside of Japan, at least in America. So we usually have to, like just for idols. So we usually have to perform at like anime conventions or Japanese festivals or things similar to that. So it's not that it's not taken as seriously, but you know, usually the sound team is just like people that are just hired by the convention and they don't know anything about what's going on. They just expect you to like, oh, send me the music file and I'll press play. And that's it, you know? So not a lot goes into it. But here in Japan, you know, I actually have to like fill out a sort of run of show form that says like, okay, this is the exact cue that I want to start the next song. And then for this song, I want to have pink and blue lights, like kira kira, you know? And so it's a lot more detailed, and they take the performance and stage aspect of it a little bit more seriously, I feel like. Also, the fan bases are also different, but even then, the fans in different parts of the US are also very different.
Oh.
I've noticed that in California, a lot of the idol fans tend to be male, but when I also lived in Florida for a little bit, a lot of the idol fans over there are more female.
Interesting.
And cosplay idols are also way more prominent on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, we've got a lot more people in the like Kaigai idol, more original concepts. So it has been very interesting having performed in both countries and in different places over in America that I've gotten to see a whole bunch of stuff.
What are some of the general kind of categories that kind of fall under the idol umbrella?
So when people ask me what I define idol as, I usually just say it's a variety entertainer. So there are idols that do music, which would be the more original concept idols like what I do. There are also cosplay idols, which do cosplay covers and things like that. Dance covers, that would be more like the dancers. And then there are also like the utaite, so just like the singing covers as well. But then idol can also be like modeling, things sort of like that. So it's just kind of an overall general entertainment term, I would say.
I see. You said that for you, what was very important what you loved was this kind of being cute and the kind of kawaii aspect. It's something that in Japan, it's very common. A lot of things are kawaii, and a lot of people have an appreciation for this. And the word cute is used in ways that it's perhaps not used so much overseas. When you try to be that in the United States, it might perhaps be more difficult to reach a fan base that has an understanding for what you're trying to convey.
Very much. I think that also goes hand in hand with what I mentioned before about my energy that was perceived in that video, where I was trying to go for that sort of super genki kawaii. But it's true, like over in America, like kawaii culture, even though it is growing in its own subcultures and its own little pockets, like you mentioned over here, like kawaii isn't just cute. It's like a whole, other meaning to it. It's just a whole like culture almost, And so it definitely is a little bit more difficult and less easily received, I think, over in the West. There are definitely still people that find it cringy, or I mean, over here, it can be cringy as well, but less common, I think, in the West to see those sorts of things.
After the project Sorbet kind of fell through, what were you thinking about? Like, okay, I still want to be an idol. Where do I go from there? What are my next steps to actually make it? Because that was your first opportunity to be part of a group, but you didn't want to kind of sit on that one. You need to move forward.
Yeah, pretty much what happened was we actually had a performance lined up, another performance as Sorbet. But because we ended up disbanding a couple weeks before the event, I did ask everyone's permission first. But I was like, hey, we have this stage, but like, I don't want this to go to waste. And like, even though I don't really want to be a soloist, my dream was always to be in a group. I was like, I kind of don't want to squander this, and it's right in the height of everyone talking about Sorbet. So like I mentioned, the eyes were on me. So I just really wanted to take this opportunity to just keep that momentum going. And so I asked the event if it would be okay if I took the Sorbet stage as a soloist. And they said, okay. And, I just pumped out a couple quick covers. I just learned some stuff very quickly just to take advantage of the opportunity. And that was the first time that I took the stage as a soloist officially. And then also around that time, there was a sort of idol producer over here in Japan that had reached out to me because when Sorbet's story blew up, we were very lucky that we had a lot of inquiries coming in for people to support us and people to help us make music.
Things.
And not only bad things. No, that's why I like to say in a very weird, twisted way that I'm grateful for what happened, because even though, sure, a lot of craziness and negativity did come from it, there were also a lot of insane opportunities that I don't think any of us would have had if this did not happen. And one of those was a producer did reach out, and he wanted to start working together and start sort of supporting me and giving me opportunities to get closer to my dream of reaching Japan. But also, he was interested in bringing authentic Japanese idol culture to the US. So we were kind of like mutually,
helping
each other. Yeah.
Your next performance was as a soloist.
Yes.
From the little I've seen of idol culture, I feel like it's always idol groups. And within the groups, each idol has a personality. There are specific character traits, things they like to eat that are usually highlighted for each of their profiles. But very rarely we see soloists. Is this something that is more common or just maybe less talked about?
Actually, I would say a majority of the idols in the US are soloists.
Okay. And in Japan?
Yeah, in Japan, definitely more groups, at least in terms of the idol label. And I think that's because in the US, we don't have idol companies to put us together. If you do make an idol group, it's usually just you and your friends sort of having a mutual agreement to come together. But managing a bunch of people's schedules is really, really hard, especially because for most people in the US, being an idol is a hobby. But when you're a soloist, you only have to worry about yourself. You only have to worry about your own schedule and your own things. So it's definitely a lot easier to get started, at least as a soloist. And even though I did always want to be in a group, I am insanely grateful for the opportunities I've had as a soloist because I am in a group now. And I don't think that group would have happened in any capacity if not for the opportunities and experiences that I had as a soloist as well.
That stage that you performed at Next, you mentioned it was kind of already booked. And in the United States, because you don't have these kind of idol companies that are putting together the groups and helping to organize all of these, to get a stage to perform at, is it something also you need to kind of contact the venues, try to plan, maybe put down money to book a time slot for you to perform it with friends?
Exactly, yeah. At anime conventions, they'll usually have like applications for performers. And so sometimes they'll have like a specific idol fest or an idol event where you can apply for that. Sometimes you just have to apply for a panel or just a main stage performance slot or things like that. And so we usually have to, at least when you're getting started, like do all of your own applications. Sometimes that does mean losing money because if you want to perform far away, you have to get your own way out there, your own hotel. Usually events will only provide like entry for that. So it is a lot of just kind of, your own starting. You have to take the first step yourself.
But you did connect with a producer here that gave you new opportunities, and you are in a new group now. Do you want to tell me a little bit about this and kind of where this kind of brought you to your career today?
Yeah, so that producer that did reach out to me, he is the reason I got to perform in Japan the first time, which was an insane opportunity and was so awesome. I'll never forget it for the rest of my days. And he's the reason that my first single came to life as well. He had put me in touch with a songwriter here. And so I got to have, my first song come out. And that also just made me feel really like legit, like, oh, wow, this is actually happening. I'm really doing this. So that definitely got the ball rolling. But my new group, I did sign with an agency that is currently based in Los Angeles, but they do a lot of business between LA and Japan as well. So, because of them, I've also been able to have the support I need to travel to more shows and things like that. They're the reason I have the shows that I have on this trip. So, but yeah, my group actually, we're going to be performing together 2 times on this trip. I'm here solo right now because I was just doing some things beforehand, and I have a solo show on the 13th. But group stuff is going to start when they come on the 17th, so excited for my members to arrive.
I can imagine. You got to do your first show in Japan as a J-pop idol, something that is very still mostly domestic. What is there an interest from the Japanese fan base into like overseas based J-pop idol groups and performances that they're like, oh, this is interesting. There are people overseas that like this and that do it as well. And now they're bringing maybe a foreign perspective on it. Do you notice this a little bit here?
I definitely have at least experienced the like, whoa, like they're from America. That's cool. Like, America definitely has that like from an outsider's perspective, some people think like, oh, wow, America, that's so cool. Especially when, Americans are interested in the culture here. It's like, oh, wow, like they think Japanese culture is cool. That's cool. And I definitely stand out when I go to idol taibans and I'm the only white girl there. But everyone has been really, really nice and receptive. In terms of the like more Kaigai idols, the ones that actually make music in English or things like that over there. Because my music is in Japanese, I haven't exactly experienced that same sort of feeling. But I do think that people appreciate that I am like interested and respectful of the culture and the way that things are done here, and that I want to be here so badly and immerse into the idol culture here instead. So I think that I've had a pretty nice reception, at least so far.
There's a fan base here that have an understanding of what goes into being an idol, the hard work that you have to put into the themes, the performance, the choreography, the music, everything around it. For people that are not familiar with idol performances like myself, and if I were to go to a show tonight and like see you perform, what are things that I can pay attention to and kind of realize, oh, actually, this is like intentional and this is conveying a specific meaning, or these choreography moves are common and you can see them in these and these kind of songs. And are there things like that that for someone that is not familiar, they can pay attention and be, oh, actually, it's like all connected?
Very much. And I actually think you might see that most with more like chica idols, like the more underground idols, because being indie artists, we're usually more of the self-produced type. So at least definitely when I was first getting started, although I did not write my first song, I did participate in the lyric making. So I gave the idea that I wanted. I gave some like key phrases and words that I wanted to include just because I wasn't super confident about my songwriting or anything at that point. So I was like, I don't want to mess this up. This is a really big thing, But I did help out. And then the choreography, I did do all of that myself. Same thing with my second single. I did all of the choreography myself. I also was a big active part of the costume designing. I do all of my own merch design. I usually even make my own merch. I used to literally hand make and like hand print my own t-shirts, but I can't do that anymore. That's too much work. But I would say that especially with a lot of us more small time idols, we truly do put our blood, sweat, and tears into it. So when you go to those sorts of shows, you can kind of see like, sure, I'm watching this show right now, but you definitely like, it's very meaningful, especially to us, when people can see that and also think about all of the behind the scenes as well, because it makes us feel like our hard work is all worth it.
You mentioned that you go to the taiban. For someone who's not familiar, what exactly is this?
Oh, right. So taiban is sort of like an all-day idol show. So the venue will be rented out for pretty much the whole day, and then just starting at whatever time until whatever time is just idols back to back to back to back to back. Sometimes it's not just idols. I've also performed in taiban where there's been like bands or just songwriters, guitarists, things like that. So it is just sort of like an artist performance day. But it's definitely common with idols to just have like idol group, and those are really fun. It's also nice to see the other idols and kind of take inspiration from them and like cheer them on. Also, I usually like to come out from backstage and kind of like cheer on the other people too, because before I am an idol fan as well. So I like to support people too.
Is this a field that, like you just described, you want to support them too in performing, or is this something where you feel like there's kind of a competition because there are so many groups, especially here in Japan, I imagine, and a lot of them come and go and they disband because when you go on stage, in the end, it's a business for most of them, not just a hobby. And so you need to bring in the crowd. The crowd needs to buy the merch. They need to pay for the signatures after, and otherwise you fail. So you need to kind of be better than all the other groups as well in a way, right?
I mean, I definitely think that there's a level of competitiveness that is healthy, but me personally, I'm not that type of person. I'm a little bit more of the like, yay, friends sort of person. So if I can say a little plainly, some of the like top idols in the West, I'm very lucky to call all of them my friends. So I've literally had slumber parties at their houses.
That's
You know,
nice.
we all just get along really well. And even though we're all, I guess you could say, competing with each other in the same like tier, you know, we all just get along really well and we all really like each other and we all support each other as well. But we can also look and see like, oh, they just did that. I want to do something just like that too. Or like, oh, they really motivated me to do better. Like one of my good friends, Paida, she did a one-man show and it was sold out and really successful. And I was so happy for her, but I was also like, oh, that like lit a fire in me to be like, okay, I want to do something successful like that too. I want to have a sold out event just like she did. So I definitely think that there is a way to take that like almost friendly rivalry, I should say, and just like have it motivate you instead of like creating any sort of like negative resentment. But there is, you know, like a way to take that, you know, healthy motivation and also have it be like a, okay, I need to be better. And so that way you can continue to make yourself an even better idol so you can, you know, continue to grow and go up and be successful too.
A big part of the success is fan support.
Very much.
What are fan interactions like in the US and here? And maybe do you have some of your favorite or most memorable moments?
Oh, I mean, they are definitely different. I would say the West has a different perception of meet and greets. I think that's why over there lately, especially in the LA community, we've been trying to introduce more Japanese style interactions and also using terms like buppan instead of just calling it meet and greets. Because in the West, you know, it's a lot of celebrities at events and stuff like that, for example, are pretty accessible. A lot of the times you can just go up and talk to them, or you can just go up and take a selfie for free or things like that. And like you said, Idol, our success is entirely based on fans and fan interaction. So that's also how, you know, a lot of us make our money as well. Like top sellers are always checky. You know, Polaroid sales are just getting a photo with your idol. That's the best way to make money. That's our bread and butter. And so, you know, you can't just go up to an idol and talk to them unprompted.
Yeah.
You can't just take a free selfie, you know. But a lot of people in the West, when I handle my interactions like that a little bit more authentically, you know, it does put a lot of people off. And I have gotten a lot of complaints about that. But, you know, especially since I am trying to direct my business over here, that's also why I'm trying to handle my personal career as authentically as I can, even if it means the West doesn't understand. But that's also why I try my best to educate as well. I try to use those terms and I try to like talk to people and explain to people like how I do things and why I do things. You know, like handshake events and like the high five, like walking down the line sort of thing. That's something that we've been trying to introduce, especially with my group, himi, chuu. We've been doing a lot of like, you know, high five interaction moments and things like that. So they are very, very different, but I've been trying to blend them together the best I can.
Because after all, you want to treat this as like a professional career path,
Yes.
and therefore your personal income kind of depending on this. And you said, for example, these Polaroids are your bread and butter in a way. So
Yes.
if you perform mostly in the United States and they don't sell because this is not part of the fan culture there, it's very difficult for you to continue basically in a way self-financing your career until you're able to get there. But difficult to get across.
Yeah, it definitely does, especially these days. I think because this is my full-time job. So like it really does, like, you know, if I go to an event, I'm like, okay, I gotta, you know, this is going to my rent today. Or like, oh, I hope I can get groceries this month. I'm just kidding. But yeah, going there. And I think that like usually when people do ask for a photo, I do unfortunately have to decline. But I do try to promote like, oh, well, idols usually take checky or we can post together. We print out the Polaroid, I can sign it. And then we get like, you know, a minute or so of interaction depending on how the line is. And you know, I try to sell it more as like an experience rather than just like a picture. You know what I mean?
The kind of authentic J-pop idol experience as it would be if you attend an event here in Japan.
Yes. Exactly.
So what was it like for you when you started attending and performing here and got to do the things the way you want them to kind of be?
I mean, everything has been great. I've had like pretty much nothing but positive experiences here so far. The fans have always been really nice. The other idols have always been really, really nice. A lot of them are interested because, like I mentioned, I'm usually the only American, especially the only, non-Japanese person. So I am kind of like the new kid, the shiny, fancy, commodity. And so everyone in every department has been insanely nice. So I've definitely had a good time so far.
Very early on in the conversation, you mentioned that when you got started, your mom would go to bed and you'd kind of dance in your room, perform, sing along to your favorite songs and kind of like dreaming. And then you talked about when you did your song, I think it's called Waku Waku Dreaming.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, to me, sounds that you achieved a little bit that girl's dream and you released your first song, which is a big turning point in your idol career.
It's actually awesome that you brought that up because that's actually the story I wanted to tell with Waku Waku Dreaming's music video. We actually built a set from scratch that like almost perfectly matched my childhood bedroom.
Oh.
So, and it's funny how that wasn't even really on purpose. Like the guy just built it and gave me pink walls because it's me. And then we just filled it with a bunch of cute things. And I went into the set the day of filming and I was like, wow, like it's actually so funny that this looks exactly like my room as a kid. Cool. And the whole story of that was I was going to be like dancing in my bedroom. So we filmed some like dancing shots in the bedroom. And then there's a scene of me like choosing my idol costume and I put it on. And then there's actually a jump cut to me performing Waku Waku Dreaming on stage. So It truly was like that perfect, sequence of events of like, oh, I'm practicing in my bedroom. And then I put on the idol costume and I'm practicing. And then, oh, I'm on stage actually doing it for real. So it really did kind of follow that storyline.
What was it like for you once that song was out and you kind of see it out there and you see people reacting? It's kind of like an official. It's like you did one.
It feels so cool. It really does. Like it sometimes still doesn't feel super real to me where after it came out, people were posting dance covers to it. I've seen people perform it as part of their own sets. And I'm like, what? Whoa, that's crazy. It's been a part of like random dance plays. People at conventions will put like a bunch of songs in a playlist. And if you know the dance, you jump out into the center and you start dancing the song. And people have put like Waku Waku Dreaming into those like, dance sets. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, people actually know my song. That's crazy.
You did the choreography for this yourself. And you mentioned earlier that you kind of worked with a professional songwriter to get the lyrics and the story across the way you wanted. Is this common here, at least in Japan, to have this kind of team where as an idol, you're like the performer, but then you kind of work with a few specialists to kind of put together a whole idol performance, from theme to song to the music to all of these?
I think it very much varies. I think I'm kind of a weird hybrid where, especially because I am based in Los Angeles and I do have American influences that I, cannot deny having lived there and grown up there, while also trying to do like a more authentic career experience. It's like, I think that there are parts of both. I think that more mainstream idols, they tend to not really have a say. They're kind of told like, okay, this is the concept we're doing. This is the song we're doing. Learn this dance. Go. You know what I mean? And that's how sometimes, I think some idols get into like concepts that they're not super comfortable with or things sort of like that. But usually groups do have like a pretty standard theme that they stick to. On the more underground idol side, I'm sure that there's a little bit more input, but I think depending on how much management they have, I think that their own personal input might get a little bit less the higher up you go. But because I do have such a passion for it, I like a little bit that I have so much say, even though I would someday like to be, Tokyo Dome level, like mainstream idol over here. That would be the dream. At least at this point, I do like having a little bit of control and say in what I do, and how like my brand is presented and things like that. I don't sell any merch that I don't think is cute myself. So
I recall from our conversation with Heidi a while back that sometimes or often the idol groups are just assembled by the production company.
Right.
So the idols don't necessarily get to choose who they perform with and what role they have in the group. And that must be quite difficult, right? Because
I'm sure it can be. At least my group, I actually scouted all the members myself. Even though like I am under this agency, the group was my idea. And since it has been my dream, I kind of like just took matters into my own hands and I just did it myself. And I found local people that, one of the members was already a friend of mine, so it just kind of worked out. But the others I had ran into at several events and I had enjoyed their singing, their dancing. I thought that they were cute. And I thought that like, I can just see, I can see the vision. And I definitely think that I chose right, because even now my phone over there is blowing up with our group chat because they're just so motivated and, they're always designing stuff, thinking of new ideas, even when I'm not actively participating in it. And it's just really like heartwarming to me to be in a group with people that are just so motivated. But yeah, it is true that usually companies will just sort of choose members and stick them together. I know my favorite idol group back in the day was formed literally. They had one idol, Yamapi, who was the center. He was the one, and they just kind of chose people that made him look good.
Which is difficult for the people that are just there to make him look good if they want to stand out and kind of have their career, because it's this balance between you're part of the group, but also you're a creative person, you want to express something, and you kind of have to find a path. Yeah,
and that's also another reason I think that I'm very lucky to have the members that I do, because there's 4 of us, so there also isn't really an official center or anything like that. We all kind of like, in every video that we film, whenever we talk to the camera, we always like change our positions. Either like, okay, I was in the back row in the last video, so I'll be in the front row this time, and vice versa. And we always introduce ourselves with like, oh, hello, we are himi, chuu. And so we've even gone around and been like, okay, who hasn't said hello yet? Like, who hasn't introduced the group yet? I think during live shows, I tend to take the MC position more, but I think that's just because having done solo idol work for 2 years now, I think I'm the most comfortable with it. And I think that they do entrust me to do it. But even then, I do try to like get the other members to talk and like interact with them more. And I'm like, okay, I'll start talking about this, but then like, you take it, like, please go, So I think that we're pretty well balanced in that regard.
When you put yourself out there on stage and you kind of put together this persona, and through your costume, through the performance, through the way you interact with the audience, there might be a difference between who you are then on stage as an idol and who you are when all cameras are shut off and you're kind of having a downtime. How difficult is it for you to make those distinctions and to kind of keep a balance between both the performer and yourself?
Honestly, some people ask me similar things where it's like, oh, is Barry just a stage persona? Like, what's Barry like off stage? I'm like, honestly, I'm kind of the same, To me, it just feels the most natural to just be me the whole time, which can also mean sometimes I'm a little over the top off stage because I just naturally have a pretty big personality. But it does make the transition easy, I guess. Sometimes to the point where if I'm interacting with fans, sometimes I have to remember like, okay, I do actually have to keep a level of professionalism though. Sometimes I'll get a little bit too casual. If they bring up one of my favorite video games or something, I'll be like, oh, let's talk about that. But it's like, oh wait, no, remember, I'm working. So I do, at least energy-wise, I like to think that I'm the same.
Yeah, I was kind of then wondering, like, where do you draw the line, basically, especially when it comes to fan interaction, to keep yourself as a performer there and not have maybe that trickle over so much into your private life. Also considering the sorbet story from earlier, which kind of had a huge impact on you, and positively as well, but not only.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, especially these days, I have had to put up a bit more of a boundary. I used to be a pretty open book, like completely fully. People always say like, oh, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm like, I actually am so much of an open book that the spine is falling apart and the pages are just flying away because I just will tell anybody anything. But that has led to some issues for me as well, where I have had people in my personal life doxxed just for being associated with me. Some people have gotten like really obsessed with trying to find out my age, for example. And so they would like look up my friends to see like around what age range of people I hang out with, or like, oh, she mentions that her interest is this. So I looked up when this came out and most people that are fans of this are this age and blah, 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 blah. And so like, it has definitely proven some safety issues. So recently, especially since signing with this agency, I have had to sort of back off from being that open, which has been really hard for me because I really do just like to yap about everything, especially things that I like, because it means that I could maybe connect with someone that has the same interest as me and like, oh, maybe we could be friends or we could have a special moment or something. So it has been hard, but for safety, I have had to kind of back off from that a little bit. And I do think that was probably for the best anyway, because idols definitely do have to have a sort of level of, it's not a great word to use, but idols should have that level of unattainability a little bit. There definitely is meant to be like, not necessarily a super thick wall, because we still have to be able to connect with our fans and things like that. But there definitely does need to be a little bit of a boundary there. So even though it was unfortunate that those things happened to me, it was also, again, another nice learning moment for me that I could be like, okay, I need to back off a little bit.
You started in your bedroom, you performed in an ice cream shop, you performed on stages as a soloist. You now have a new group with a new agency performing around the United States at conventions, but also in Japan. Your dream is to come here and be in Japan full time. What does it take, or what will it take for you to be able to make that transition to perform your dream of being an idol here in Japan on a more permanent basis?
I have been thinking about that question a lot on my own. I've looked up ways to get visas for here. I've definitely been thinking about it, and like, I guess maybe taking small steps to kind of getting there. But it is also a little difficult right now, because I would say that my fan base is much larger in the West than it is over here. Even though my story did reach here, obviously idols are, if I can say, a dime a dozen, So even though I might look different than everyone, I'm still in a pretty saturated industry. But in the West, since my story especially blew up on like Western social media and things like that, a lot of people over there know who I am. A lot of people will come to my shows and things like that. And I'm very lucky for that. And in a way, because I am a full-time idol, traveling in America and doing shows in America has been paying for me to live. So at the moment, I've kind of just been focusing on like, okay, I'm going to come to Japan whenever I can and work on building connections and building fan base here, and doing more collabs whenever I can, and then just go back to LA and then just, keep earning the money over there. And, obviously my home is there as well with my cat. So, I'm hoping like slowly but surely I can kind of start to filter, my way over here on a more permanent basis.
Do you think that now coming here occasionally for a few performances brings this novelty that you talked about? You're the American performer being here, you're interested in this, and for that one show, the fan base really likes this. If you were to be here full time, you would become part of the J-pop idol group base that exists in Japan, which is very big, which is very competitive, and that it might be more difficult because people would start knowing you, which is good, but also might be the kind of standards, the kind of expectations of you as part of an idol group would be more stricter, as well as maybe you would lose some of the opportunities you have to have so much creative input on your own performances.
Very much. Yeah, those are definitely also things I've thought about where it's like, okay, there is going to be a point where I am going to have to let go of the amount of control that I have of my image and everything like that. And even though it probably would be kind of hard for me because I just like I said, I don't like to sell merch that I personally would also not buy, because I just want everything to be cute and high quality. And I just want, I have a very like specific idea for my solo brand, for example. And so the idea of like giving like my identity almost away to someone sometimes does scare me a little bit, but I do also know that it's a part of, the journey that I want to take for my end destination. So at some point I will definitely have to mentally prepare myself.
What's the end destination?
Well, my top goal is definitely Tokyo Dome, I mentioned before. I think that like being in like a pretty decent sized agency here, being in a group here and performing, even if it honestly isn't Tokyo Dome, if it gets to be like just a nice sizable mainstream sort of group, I think that would be, that would be like, oh, dream was blown out of the water, because, growing up on like the Johnnies and Hello Project and stuff, I definitely was introduced to Chica idols on a much later basis. I saw the mainstream first. And so I was just like, oh, I want to be like that. I want to be just like those guys. So that's kind of the expectation that I put on myself.
You mentioned that while you're here, you often try to do collaborations. Is it common for idols or idol groups to collaborate with each other, maybe cross-perform or do things like that? Or do they usually kind of each has their own lane?
I have noticed, I think it definitely depends. I have seen people do in the Chica scene, like do collabs. I have some friends that are in the scene and we do collabs sometimes. They've done like, oh, I don't even know the lyrics to your song. So I'm just going to like hold up my phone with the lyrics and I'm just going to read it into the microphone because it's just so like unprompted, I've definitely seen stuff like that. And then I think a lot of other like mainstream collabs are definitely more for kind of like helping promote each other purposes. Like if a group comes out with a really popular dance trend, whenever you perform on TV, you're going to be like, oh, there's a bunch of celebrities here. Let's do our dance trend with this celebrity. So then we can promote each other, so that's kind of the mindset for that. But usually for me, it is, I guess, admittedly a bit about exposure, about like, oh, we can like be with each other, especially, having collaborated with like Lady Beard, for example, which was crazy because like growing up watching him and being like, oh, wow, like he's also a foreigner doing stuff in Japan. That's so cool. When we got to work together and he's like the nicest person alive.
He's very, very nice and very loud. Very, very loud.
Oh, yes. Yeah. But, that was definitely a big like milestone for me was like getting to dance to his song and then having him dance my choreography. I was like, whoa, this is crazy.
And he's got the energy to do it too. He matches your energy.
Very much. He's awesome. But it is about like, I guess just exposing myself to more people here as well. There's definitely some dream collabs I have over here that would be really nice. But yeah, I think that collabing is still a thing that people like to do.
So what are the things you're working on now? You've released an album, you're performing, you're currently on a tour here in Japan. What are things that people can expect from you in 2026 and kind of going onwards?
Well, I do have my third single coming out. I did debut it live at Anime Expo last year, or this past year. And I think that went really well. People seem to really like that one. But I've actually been so busy, I haven't had the opportunity to go to the recording studio and finish it.
Oh,
so
wow.
That's actually the only reason it hasn't come out yet is because I've just been like nonstop traveling. I think I'm on an airplane like multiple times a month these days because I'm just like constantly going, which definitely not complaining. You know, I'm so lucky and so grateful, but it has proven to be difficult to sit down for 5 seconds and record anything. So next year, it definitely will be coming. I also would like to do a music video for that as well. And then my group, himi, chuu, you know, we also have an original song with more on the way for that as well. And since joining the group, since that was my, you know, dream was to be in a group, I've definitely been kind of shifting my main focus to them as well. Like solo activities will definitely still continue, and I'll still definitely perform as a soloist and make music and, you know, do things like that. But I'm more emotionally invested, I think, these days in my group. So there's definitely a lot of big plans for us.
Exciting plans. Barry, we talked about so many things from your career, insights into the idol industry, comparisons between what's it like in the US and here in Japan. Is there anything that we haven't covered that maybe is important to you that you would like to share, whether with a general audience or your fans?
I mean, I think a lot of people kind of just ask me how to get started with this. And it's, you know, it's a pretty hard question for me specifically to answer, because I would say that my journey is very unconventional. And not only is my journey unconventional, but also my end goal is also pretty unconventional as well. That's kind of why I personally don't refer to myself as a Kaigai idol, because I don't feel a lot of connection to wanting to stay in the West. I think that Kaigai idols tend to refer more to like J-pop inspired idols. A lot of my friends, you know, that do that, they make music in English, or they perform like only in America, or they're pretty much just interested in staying in America. Maybe performing in Japan, you know, would be cool, but I don't think that many of them have the same desire to move here like I do. And I've been trying to be like immersed in the authentic, like, idol culture over here. So that's why I think that I'm a little bit different. But I do think that I try to give the advice of just like, you know, sign up for those performances, you know, like I mentioned with those anime conventions or festivals, you know, if you ever see an application, shoot your shot, you know, like
give it a try.
Like I literally started from just singing in my bedroom. And even though I kind of like things exploded, you know, things got crazy. You know, it's still a pretty like similar enough journey of just apply and just try. And then like, if you're committed enough and you work hard enough, and it's cheesy, but like if you dream hard enough, you know, like you really can do it. So that's what I believe.
And even when things sometimes look very bad, good things can come out of it.
Very much.
Barry, thank you so much.
Oh no,
for sharing
thank
your
you.
story, for talking or sharing your passion with us today. It was a pleasure having you.
No, thank you again for having me, and it was great to meet you.
Looking forward to all the new songs and albums coming out in the near future. Maybe we'll have you perform in Osaka sometimes.
That would be so much fun. I would love to.
Thank you everyone for listening and watching. This was Unpacking Japan, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye. Wow, I am extremely impressed about how you managed. Thank you for sticking with us all the way till the end. We really appreciate it. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the podcast. It helps us improve the show and bring you more in-depth conversations from Japan. Take care and see you next time.